Thank you, Dr. Van Hoven. And you can tell that we have all the advocates in this panel. Our final panelist will be Dr. Rhienhard.
Hello. I wish I had enough time to let you stand and stretch, but forget it. Isn't happening. We are on a time frame here. So I also want to tell you that this week we will be releasing a paper that I wrote with my colleague on the advocacy arm, on the policy research arm of AARP. The advocacy colleague, Elaine Ryan, and I are producing a paper that gets into much more detail and will be released this week. So anyone who is interested more in this, you can certainly talk to me afterwards, but stay tuned. I wanted to start with just this very simple point, which is that family caregivers are a precious resource. This is showing a demographic ratio of people who are potential caregivers in the 45 to 64-year-old range. I know that's just a slice, over those that are 80 plus. And you can see, we call this the caregiving cliff, and it scares policymakers. So anyone who's interested in research to policy, this is just a very simple example. We have it by state too. But what I really want to talk about is the research called Home Alone. And this story starts with really thinking with my colleague, Carol Levine at the United Hospital Fund for a number of years now, what is the job description of a family caregiver? They're usually portrayed as performing activities of daily living, the bathing and dressing and the instrumental activities of daily living. And it's a long story about why we were getting to that, shopping and all those things. But she and I agreed that there's much more, and you've been hearing this. And so we wanted to add more understanding of what family caregivers do, particularly in the area of complex care. And so this research was funded by the John A. Hartford Foundation, who has been unbelievably supportive of this work over the last couple of years, and we hope to continue collaborating with them. We did this study first starting off with, well, what do we know about what family caregivers might do in this complex care area, looking at literature, research, and things that I call nurse delegation, if you're familiar with that, things that nurses delegate to nurses' aides, unlicensed assistive personnel, those kinds of things, and talking to each other, and of course our own experience. And we worked with Knowledge Networks, which is now GFN, not Knowledge Networks, they were bought out. At the time it was Knowledge Networks. And we started, this is a broad national, first time national sample of family caregivers who were caring for people at pretty, I would call them at high risk for nursing home placement. This was very complex care. And so the initial question was, in the past 12 months, have you provided unpaid care to a relative, partner, or friend? That point has already been mentioned. It's not just family members per se, age 18 years or older, to help them take care of themselves because of a chronic illness or disability. Then we gave them options around activities of daily living, instrumental activities of daily living, and then, for the first time, this list of different things that they might be doing. We asked them, are you doing this? Are you giving this particular kind of care? How did you learn how to do this? Any concerns you have with it? And so I don't have time to go through the whole study, but you could certainly look at that. The bottom line is this was published in 2012, and we found that those surveyed, almost half of the time, 46%, were doing these kinds of things, and I'll show you what these kinds of things mean in a moment. Most of them, 96% of them, were of course doing the other things, the ADLs and the IADLs, and on top of this, we're doing what we then called medical nursing tasks. Only a small percent were only doing the medical nursing tasks, so it comes with a whole lot with it. I just want to say these medical nursing tasks, how we came up with that term that is now very happily used in the literature, is that I wanted to call them nursing tasks because I'm a visiting nurse, and I always think about these things as things that nurses typically do. But Carol, my colleague who is not a nurse, tried that term with family caregivers, and they said, well, we can't do nursing tasks, only nurses can do nursing tasks, which I found amazing. But they understood medical tasks. They could say medical. So that's why we called it medical nursing tasks. It probably deserves a much better term, but it's descriptive. These are the tasks, sort of lumped together, Very descriptively, we got into this, but managing medications, this includes IVs, injections, all kinds of routes, help with assistive devices, preparing food for special diets, wound care, which includes colostomies, pressure sores. You can see the whole list. I don't need to go through this whole list, but you can see we were trying to capture the vast array of things that family caregivers have been doing that I saw as a visiting nurse years ago, but I thought it's probably even more, but hadn't been documented yet. People know this, but how do we get at least a look, open a door and take a look at what family caregivers are doing, put a name to it, so to speak. So that's what we did. Then we drilled down around medication management. We found, as you saw, 3 out of 4 who did any kind of medical nursing tasks were focused on medications, of course. But then we asked more about how many medications. Almost half, we're talking 5 to 9. This is not 1 pill a day. This is not even just a pill, many different things. And 1 in 5, 10 or more prescriptions a day. We let people write in, and this is one quote, "I constantly monitor medications." We asked them what would help. They said fewer medications. Yes, most of them had learned about at least 1 or more of these medications on their own. They found it difficult. We asked them how difficult things were. Difficult because it's time-consuming, inconvenient. Remember, most caregivers work, so they're doing this on top of their other job. They were afraid of making a mistake and/or the care recipient didn't cooperate. Certainly in dementia, that is often the case. That wasn't the only case. We also drilled down in wound care. So these are the only 2 areas that we really got more information. We wish we could do more, and I think we will soon do more. So more than 1/3 of those who were doing medical nursing tasks were providing some kind of wound care. Remember, that's a big term for a lot of different things that could be going on. So there's fewer of them doing that task than medications, but a greater percentage felt that it was difficult, and many would like more training. This is the group that got more training, though. Medication's not as much training. Wound care, some, but more would like it. And almost half said they were afraid of making a mistake or hurting or harming the person that they were providing this care for. So that was 2012. Grace mentioned this study we did with them, of course, with the National Alliance for Caregiving, and we didn't do as deep a dive. We took 1 question and then some some follow-up questions with the panel of 1,200 family caregivers to further explore this, and what we found is more than half in this study of adults said they were performing medical nursing tasks. And we had another component to this whole study, right, Grace, that looked at higher users or caregivers, higher hour caregivers, and lower hour caregivers, demarked by 20 hours. If you're giving care for 20 hours or more, 83% are performing medical nursing tasks. So it's huge. We have that data broken down by age of the caregiver. Everything is broken down that way. So if you're interested, you can look at that. So again, we asked them, did you get much training, much help? No. Not happening. This is all, of course, self-report. So this finding reinforced what we found in 2012. So then we said we have enough research, right? Move into action. We have to get something done about this. I had dinner with Elaine Ryan, who I mentioned, who is the advocacy person, and she said, let's do something about this. What should we be doing? So we brainstormed, and this is what we came up with, the CARE Act. A lot of other people weighed into this, by the way. This was on the back of a napkin kind of beginning. Other people weighed into this. But it basically does these 3 things. Hospitals must ask anyone who's admitted, any age, any diagnosis, do you have a family caregiver? In so many words. We could talk more about that. If yes, do you want them in your medical record, your health record, your hospital record, to be identified, to be visible, which is what family caregivers have been asking for quite some time. If that happens, the goal is to pull you into the team, have you be part of the care in general. But the legislation talks about offering training on medical nursing tasks. So that's the specific request. If you would like training, you have to be offered guidance, and you need to be told when the person is going to be discharged as soon as possible. So it is now law in 39 states and territories. And we only started in 2014. So this paper I just talked about is that story of how do you rapidly translate research into policy across most of the nation and territories. And it's a very interesting story. This is the map of the United States, so you can see there's a big missing chunk here around Florida, the southeast, and a few other places. So that work continues. In the meantime, we're starting a National CARE Act scan. So 2014, first states enacted, keep on going throughout the years, how many here, blah, blah, blah. We have 39. What are you doing about it? So now you have policy. How is it being implemented? So we have put together research teams. Heather Young is here, Dr. Heather Young, who is the lead of one of the research teams. We do interviews across the country. We just started doing this end of last year. We were very busy in California about 2 weeks ago. And we talk to people. This is not about, we gotcha. This is about, what are you doing? Are there any promising practices that you can share with us? It's more of a discovery process. That's why we call it a scan, not evaluation research. But it has a protocol, and we are very consistent with one another. We talk to nursing, social work, pharmacy, physical therapy, information technology, care managers, you name it. We try to get as physicians, we get as many as we can during this site visit. And we focus a lot, I just identified a few, but the first is like, how do you identify a family caregiver? Do you know what that even means? Do the staff understand this? How do you get it into the record? How have you been going about doing that? What are your challenges? What are the promising things you've been finding? And then, okay, so if you know them, you know who it is, how are you teaching? How are you instructing? How are you guiding? What resources are you using? What resources do you need? So that's the process we have now. We intend to go to most, I don't know if we'll get to all of them, because one of them is like, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, so we'll see if our resources will stretch that far. But I wanted to share with you that this is all part of the work of a Home Alone Alliance. This alliance is bringing together public, private, foundations, different disability groups, as well as aging and family caregiver advocacy groups together into an alliance. The alliance was founded by certainly AARP, by Kathy Kelly, Family Caregiving Alliance, Carol Levine, the co-author, and Dr. Heather Young, UC Davis. But we also have at least 20 other members of this alliance right now. And the whole goal of this group is, I guess you could call it culture change. Like, what should we be doing to fill the gap between what family caregivers are expected to do in this complex care area, and how are they instructed, or how do they learn what to do? We don't think we have all the answers. We're in this space. We welcome you to consider these questions as well. And we started with videos. This is the first resource that we have been developing. These are videos and resources that go with it, one-pagers. Everyone I mentioned is involved in this. Sorry about that. And it is from the focus point of a family caregiver. So there is nothing that we could find for the last many years, because we would have started referring people to those resources. This is about these tasks, these